Hello YouTube, Greg here. I'm a new trucker. I got licensed at Prime and went through their whole training process. And I thought I would do a couple of videos and talk about that process and my experiences with that process. And more importantly, talk about some of the cool places I've been and seen and show some photos, I hope, if I can figure out how to edit this well enough to do that. So I started with Prime in February and went through the student training program, got my permit, they call it PSD, drove with a PSD trainer for 2 weeks, went and took the CDL exam, and passed on the first try, which they call a trifecta. It's a kind of a good thing to get because you get a little extra money. And I had a pretty good experience. My trainer, he was an Air Force guy, and I had been in the Army, but back in the 80s. So we connected at some level on that. He was probably a little more rigid than I would have preferred, but the flip of it is he was a good trainer. He was worried about making sure that I learned what I needed to learn. The only negative we had was the night before I took the CDL exam. Was really the first time I'd gotten any practice with backing. And he had been backing trucks his whole life, ever since he was a little kid, so to him backing was just a normal, natural thing. And he was a little shocked when I couldn't do it. And, we had a little tension with that. Going into the exam, I think my assumption, and I think his was too, I would fail on the backing portion. I was good on everything else. And somehow I passed, and I got in. I had to do a alley dock, which is kind of the hardest maneuver, and I screwed up the entry to it, so I had to pull forward and do a correction. And I probably sat there for 2, 3, 4 minutes, with my hands just making movements how I wanted the trailer to move and where I thought I needed the tractor to push it, and just doing some basic geometrical calculations, and I figured it out and I got it in there, so it worked. It wasn't a real good clean move. Wasn't something I'd want to do at a truck stop, but it got me through the exam. So on to training, and I'm my second trainer for the trainer-trainee portion, and I was with him 8 or 9 weeks. I only took 2 days off, and that was just to go back and get my license changed to a Virginia license, which you have to do. That guy was super cool. Victor was his name. I don't think I was a very good trainee. I kept on making the same damn mistakes, although I was trying hard. I kept on doing the same stupid shit again and again and again. But he was ultra patient, cool guy. He ended up taking me to meet his parents, and he lived down outside El Paso. And that was really cool. We ended up going over to Mexico together. He took me to meet his dentist. I was having a minor dental problem. Got that resolved over there, which cost him almost nothing. So the whole thing was cool. He did a real good job of training me. Once again, though, the one kind of lacking point was backing. And it's something I talked to him about a bunch of times. And, every time I did, we would do some backing, and, I would do shitty at it. But in any event, I learned enough to function, and I've been out here now for 2 months, and I was kind of lucky. I got a very new fleet manager. I really like the guy. He's cool. I think he may not entirely know his job quite yet. There's been a few little hiccups here and there, and he's new, I'm new. I've kind of looked the other way, but he's helped me a lot too. So there's a little give and take there. So I'm really happy with him. The one thing I would say is I'm probably not making the money that I think I was expecting to make and probably should make. On the other hand, I think early on you got to kind of suck it up a little, and not sweat it. And to give you a quick example, I was in Oregon delivering wood, and my next load, which is my current load, I picked up to pick up more wood. And it was way in the middle of damn nowhere. It was one of those deals. The lumber yard it looked like you were driving into the 1940s. It was really surreal in some ways. But they load me up and they don't have a scale, so obviously I end up overweight. But not a lot. I moved the tarps. I was overweight on the drives. I moved the tarps. Drove during July 4th, so that was a Thursday. I knew most of the scales would be closed. I was using Trucker Path to make sure they were closed as I was getting close to them. Shouldn't do that, but I had to kind of. I was pulling over when I could do that. And by burning off the fuel, I'm now legal, I think. I'm 99% sure. I'm not going to rescale because I got to go forward no matter what the situation is at this point. But because I picked up on a Wednesday, July 4th was a Thursday, I could have delivered yesterday, Friday, but the receiver wouldn't take it. I called the guy, he's a nice guy, wouldn't take it. And as soon as he'd take it is Monday, so I really kind of got screwed for 3 days where I'm sitting. And I'm sitting in Mountain Home, Idaho. I could move up to Snowville, Utah, which I'll probably do tomorrow, which is about 3 hours to get me within jumping range to the receiver. But one thing about being here, there's a movie theater I can get to. There's a Walmart across the street. There's a library that's got internet. Snowville's not going to have that stuff, so the services are kind of here. So I have stayed, and I got my 34-hour reset. So this resets my whole clock, which is good. So, that's kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly. I am overall pretty happy with Prime. I think there's a few little hiccups. I think there's some things they could improve. I mean, it's like all these trucking companies. I mean, they're here to make money, and they're not here to entertain you. So there's going to be some bumps in the road for you, obviously, and that's going to be true with any trucking company you go to. The one thing I will say, I did have some problems with Prime when I raised them with my fleet manager and said, "Hey, this isn't cool." He fixed it. He agreed and fixed them immediately. Within an hour, I'd get a phone call or a message over my Qualcomm saying, "I got it straightened out for you. Don't worry about it." So that's pretty awesome. I mean, when you got somebody that's going to help you, that's on your side, it's pretty great. So yeah, Prime's not perfect. If you're starting out, I would recommend it. Think about it. It's a good place to start. So let me talk about a couple places that I stopped, and I'm going to cross my fingers that I can add pictures at the end of this so you can see them. So one is called the Cadillac Ranch. It's the Cadillac Ranch, and it's on I-40, and it's as you're going through the Texas Panhandle. I'm not sure what town it's near, and it's not a cat house. What it is, and I'm sure probably everybody watching this has seen pictures of this or video of it at some point. It's 10 Cadillacs that are nose down into the ground, and really pretty bizarre. And from what I've read about it, the guy who did it, he's just some farmer, and it's an art installation. These Cadillacs, when he stuck them in there, were in pretty good shape. They weren't brand new, but they were in decent shape. And people came along and defaced them and smashed the windows out and that kind of shit. And so he has over time encouraged people to spray paint on them. And what you see when you get there is the spray paint in some places on those things has got to be like 2 or 3 inches thick. And while I was there were probably 6 or 8 people spray painting on them. But it's a cool stop. There's a Love's near there, so you can park your truck. There's actually pretty good parking directly in front of it. It's roadside. You can park an 18-wheeler in there. Going west-east, which is on its side, it's on the service road between the highway and the art installation. Before you get to it, there's 2 abandoned businesses that are probably half to 3/4 of a mile away. So you could park in there too, and they got big lots. It'd be fine. So I'll try and show a couple pictures of those. Highly recommend people, if you're going by there and you can burn an hour or do your 30-minute rest break or something, it's worth it. It's a good spot. So I have a mountain bike with me, and I do a lot of biking. Yesterday I didn't bike for some reason. I wasn't really feeling too good, but most days I try and get the bike out and I ride, and I've ridden in some cool places. But the coolest of the cool was at the TA in Kingman, Arizona, which is right before you start to head up to Hoover Dam. And I was delivering in Las Vegas. And there's a trail in there, and it's right up behind it. You can almost, actually, when you're riding it, there's a couple times where you can see the TA, you get a glimpse of it. But it's called the Monolith Garden Trail. And the trailhead is probably less than a mile from the TA. And then the loop is 8 miles in there. And it looks like a movie set when you're back in there. You can bike it, you can hike it. Biking, I would say it's intermediate level biking. I did hike the bike up a couple rocky passages just because I was tired that day and I didn't want to take any chances of going head over and getting hurt in there right before it was going to get dark. And I want to make sure I could get out while it was light. But it is absolutely spectacular. I think I've got about 10 photos, 10 photos, so I'll probably try and show 6 or 8 of those at the end of this. Outside Barstow, and I don't know whether I'm going to show the photos to this or not because the lens of my camera was screwed up, and the cool thing about this place was the coloring. But I think it's called Rainbow Canyon, and from the Pilot or Flying J, whichever it is in Barstow, it's probably a 20-mile ride to get back in there, maybe 15, 18 to get back in there, and then it's an 8 or 9 mile loop in there. This is one of the weirdest places I've ever been. You go up through this canyon, and you're in a canyon the whole time you're riding up. And at times, I mean, they say no campers in there. Really, unless you've got a 4-wheel drive car or a motorcycle, you don't need to be going back in there. But the rock coloring, and from what I've read, you want to go in the morning or in the evening because the colors are more brilliant. I was in there right dead at noon, so I probably wasn't seeing it as good as it was. Once again, absolutely spectacular. And when you're going in there or coming out of there, there's a museum, and it's all free. And shit, I can't think of the name of it. But there's a train museum in there, and then there's another museum. It was a train stop way back, 1880s, 1890s. It's been restored. It's this beautiful house. And there were a bunch of these along the rail. And actually, when you go in there, the woman told me the story that the way this is set up, they would order lunch. The train would go through some hobunk place. The train would slow down. They'd pass a note out to somebody who would then teletype it up to this place. When the people got off, their food would be laid out on the tables. And this was first-class fine dining. The food would all be laid out. They don't have 20 minutes to eat. They'd have to get back on that train and go. But maybe it's called the Harvey House. But anyway, it's really cool, and maybe I'll have a couple pictures of that. So in any event, I'm going to do some videos, and it'll be kind of my experiences and cool places I've seen and photos. Maybe I can do some videos at some point. I'm not going to be doing the advice kind of stuff because I'm new. I'm flatbedding. I'm new. I don't really know much about this. The only thing I can give is my experience as to Prime's training program and what I experienced. And I had a pretty good experience. Some people don't. Some people do. But I can give my experience. So hope you enjoy the video, and hope I can attach now what you will see, the photos.